All right, welcome back. This is a short tutorial on how to use Minecraft Education to demonstrate how to use the idea of iterative loops, the process of looping through a series of commands, but having some type of variable change inside of each one of those loops. So that way your robot doesn't do the same thing, or if your builder doesn't do the same thing over and over again, maybe it actually ends up changing each loop just a little bit, doing something that's a little bit different every time it loops through a process. Let's check out how this can be done to create some artwork. So here we are in Minecraft Education Edition. I'm just on a blank green grassy field area. I'm going to play around a little bit on this green grassy field area to show how you can use the builder and also how you can use the agent to be able to change its variables to create some iterations that are different, interesting artwork. So I'm going to start off by pressing C to open up the code builder. From here, I'm going to go into building some code, and I'm just going to click on New Project here. And I'm going to call this Iterative Art. McDowell Iterative Art. There we go. Now I press Create. I'm going to start off with some empty code here. So I've got my empty on-chat command here. I'm going to call it art. So instead of saying run, I'll call this art. And it's going to make some type of artwork. I'm going to make it basically just draw something on the ground. I'm going to make some type of interesting art that I'm going to draw on the ground. All right, so let's start this off. The first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to talk about using the iterative idea of looping with some type of variable in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my agent teleport to where I am. I'll start with that as the process. So that's going to happen no matter what. Now, what do I want it to do after that? Well, we're going to go into the loops area, and we're going to see we have this repeat block, and we've used this many times before. The repeat block is a way for us to do something over and over again. However, this particular case, we're going to do something with an index variable or an iterative variable. And if I scroll down here, you're going to see something that says, for index from 0 to 4, do something. And this is what we're going to use to create our iterative process. So you can see here that it's going to start from 0 and go up to 4, and it's going to do something a certain number of times. So I'm going to click and drag this and put this down here. This is the whole lesson is based off of this idea of using iterations that have a variable involved with them. In this case, the variable is called index. So if I go over here to where it says variables, you're going to see now that we have this variable and it's called index. And we can set it, we can change it. We call this getting and setting. This is a way for us to be able to play around with the idea of index. But we're just going to start with this, with how it is right now. It says, agent teleport to player. For index 0 to 4, we're going to do something. So let's see what we can do with this. Well, let's do something very simple to start with. We're going to give our agent, we're going to make our agent move forward, and we're going to make it move by, not by 1, but we're going to make it move by this variable. So right here, index, I can go to variables over here on the left and grab this bubble that says index, and I'm going to plug that in where the 1 is for my agent move forward. Okay. Now the other thing that I want to do is I want to make my agent destroy the block below it, and I'm going to make it replace it with something else. So I'm going to go to agent, and I'll have the agent destroy the ground below it. I'm going to do this before it moves forward. I'm going to make it destroy what's below it. I'm going to make it place a different block. So let me see. I got to give my agent some type of block to put down. So I'm going to say agent set block or item. This is going to put whatever block I put right here, it's going to put this in its inventory, in this count, in this slot. So I'm going to just make it some color. I'll make it draw with wool. That'll be funny. I'll make it draw with like white wool. That should be good. All right. So the agent's going to teleport to where I am. It's going to get a block. We'll say I'm going to give it a block of wool in its inventory. it's going to destroy whatever's below it, and then it's going to place that block of wool down below it. Then I'm going to have the agent move forward by whatever this index variable is. Now, this is kind of the crux of what this project is all about and what it explains, and that is this idea of using the index variable to affect the code. Now, how does this work? The first time the loop runs, it's going to start at the number 0. So index is going to equal 0. Then it goes through this whole loop, and then it comes back up here to the top, and it changes what index is to the number 1. It increases by 1. Then it goes through this whole thing. So then basically the first time this runs through, the agent is going to move forward by 0. The next time it runs through, the agent will move forward by 1. Then the agent, after that, it'll do all this, and the agent will move forward by 2. Then it'll move forward by 3. Then it'll move forward by 4, and so on. So the idea is learning about this index variable, this iterative variable right here, and how it changes over time. Let's try it out. So I'm just going to go over here, and my agent is getting harassed by a pig over there. If I go over here and I type in, let's see, what was my command called anyway? It was called art. Okay. So if I go over here and I type art, we'll see that the agent teleports to my position. And look at that. Every time it does this, the first time it does it, for some reason maybe it was because I'm standing right here. Yeah, there we go. We can see that the first time it does it, it moves forward by 0. The second time it does it, it moves forward by 1, then 2, then 3, and now it moved up by 4. So if I change this value here, let's see if I change the index from 0 to something else. Let me change it from 0 to 8, for example. Now every time it moves, it's going to move forward by 1 more time than it did last time. Let's try this one more time. So you can see every time he moves forward, he's going to move forward by a larger and larger amount. Huh, look at that. Interesting. Okay, so this is the principle of what we're acting on with this iterative variable. Each time it does something, it's going to change the amount by 1 each time. Let's see what else we can do with this. Now, right now, we have it to where it's, we can see that it leaves a block of dirt behind here. So I'm also going to have it collect the dirt as it moves along, so it's not a littering bot here. I'll go over here and I'll have it collect all after it destroys down and places down. I'm going to have it collect. There we go. Let's try that out. Just so that way it doesn't leave that dirt behind here. There we go. All right, so now it's cleaning up after itself. Very nice. Now, how can I make this more interesting? Right now, it's cool. I have a line that increasingly gets further apart. It's a dotted line that gets increasingly further apart from itself. But how can I do more than just this? Well, let's check it out. Other things that you could potentially do is you can make it, instead of moving forward by an index, you can make it do a lot of different things. I can make it move up or down or left or right, and I could keep on using this index variable to make things more and more interesting. Let's see what we can do here. Let me go over to blocks here, and you'll see that there is a fill variable, fill with. Ooh, okay. So maybe I want to fill with blocks of a differing size each time I do this. Instead of having my agent do this, I could try this with something like a position block like this. So we see with this idea of using the agent, how this loop works. Basically, it changes the idea of index from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It keeps on increasing each time it does its process. Now let's see how we can make some interesting art with this idea. So I'm going to go back into my player. Actually, I'm just going to delete the stuff that's in here. Or I'll just make a copy of this block here, duplicate, and I'll call this Art2. This time, though, I don't want to have index affect an agent. I'm going to take all this agent stuff out of here. I don't need any of this stuff. I'm still going to use this idea of an index from 0 to 8, but now I'm going to play around with what index is going to do. What I could do is I could go over here to under advanced. You can see that you can add some other things in here. So I'm going to go to the shapes area and let's play around with some shapes, how we can make some shapes. So if I wanted to make a line of objects from a number to another number, I could do that. Or circle of, okay, or sphere of. Let me try circle of. I'm going to take circle of and plug that in here. Now right here, I'm going to have the circle be a certain size here. And the center is going to be 0, 0, 0. That means exactly where I'm standing. But let me make it to where each time it makes a circle, it's going to go up by 1. So to do that, I could change the index here, the center number here, to be the index. So I'll go to variables. I'll grab index. Now just remember that this means that every time it runs, the first time it runs, index will be 0. The second time it runs, index will be 1. The third time it runs, it'll be 2, and so on. It'll keep on going up until it reaches this number right here. Now, if I take this and I also change the radius, ooh, okay, let me do that. Let me also set the radius to be index. So the first time it runs, it's going to be 1, then it'll be 2, then it'll be 3, and so on. Let's try that out. I'm going to go to variables, plug the index into the radius size. Let's just see what happens with this. So I've got this idea of using an index. I'm making the index affect the y variable as far as where the center is, and also the radius, how wide this circle is going to be. Let's try it out. So I'm going to type in art2, and there it is. Oh my goodness. If I move around, we can see that as it's building, as I move, it is building in this direction. So you can see that it's making it bigger and bigger, and it's also changing where the center is. Interesting. All right. Now let me make it, right now I have the circle to where it's being built along the side here. So maybe I want it, instead of being built around the x-axis, I want it to be built around the y-axis. That way it builds in a circle around. So let's see how this works. I'm going to press play. And I'll type in art2. And now we can see, if I move here, oh my goodness, we can see that it's building. It starts here, and it builds up and up. Now, if you're moving while it's happening, you're going to get some kind of weird aberrations like this. So let me do art2 and not move. And it's building around me right now, and it's building up. So after it's done with the process, I'll move. I'll show you how you can actually fix this to where it doesn't build based off of your current location. But we can see here, let's look at how this worked. So we can see that it started with 0, then it became 1, and it's expanded out a little bit. Then it became 2, then it became 3, and so on. It's getting wider and wider as it goes out. So it's basically making like a cone. It's making a cone that starts off really skinny at 1 here, and then it gets wider and wider until it branches out. The radius ends up being 8 there on the top there. Interesting. I can change the object to be a different type. So maybe I'll make it like a blue block or something like that. And we're able to play around with this. You could also do, instead of doing replace here, you could do something like outline or hollow. Let's try hollow. See what that looks like. I bet you can assume what this is kind of going to look like here. So if I type in art2, we can see that it is building around me, and you can see that each ring, each circle, is increasing the radius by 1 each time, and it ends up creating something that looks like a cone. Oh. All right. You can see that it's getting wider and wider. Interesting. So we're able to create some nice artwork, some interesting designs by using this iterative principle, this iterative index variable. Now, let's say you didn't want to make it to where when I moved, it messes stuff up. The reason why it's doing that is it's basing it off of your relative position. If you see these little squiggly lines right here, that means it's your relative position to where you happen to be standing. If you don't want that to be the case, you're going to want to add your position, your relative position, to something else. Let me show you how you can do that, just in case you're curious on how to do that. If you go to Math here, you're able to add things together. So there's something that says 0 plus 0. You can take this and you can plug it in to this value. You're going to see that you could put it into any one of these values. So let's say I wanted to make the index variable like 2 spots above where I am. 2 plus the index variable. This is a way to where when I actually run this, it's going to start 2 squares above where I am, and that's where it's going to start the index. So let me try running this just so you can see what I mean by that. I'm adding 2 to the y variable, so now you can see that it starts up higher than it did before. It was starting at 0, which is right where I'm standing, but now you can see that I raised it essentially by 2 tiles with each time that it tries to make its loop. Interesting. All right, so now I've got it to where it's floating above me, and it's increasing by 1 each time. All right, what if I wanted to make it the other way around? What if I wanted to flip this thing around and I wanted to make it wider than it was? Well, the way that you could do that is you could take this index. Remember, right now it's 0 to 8. So I can make it like 8 minus the index. And so it would start at 0 because it would be 8. Or I'm sorry, it would start at 8 minus 0, then 8 minus 1, which is 7, then 8 minus 2, which is 6. So this is basically a way of flipping it around. You're starting with the maximum value, and you're subtracting whatever the index was. Because this counts up from 0, it's going to start at this. And its index is still going to be, it's going to start off at 0, and it's going to end up being at 8. So let's check it out. Now if I run this, you can see that it starts up there, and then it builds downward. All right. You can see each one of the different places being built down below. And here at the very end, we've got this kind of conic pyramid here. Interesting. Now, what's nice about this is you can actually make this very, very large. It doesn't have to be this size. You can make these iterative processes be gigantic. Yes, Andy? Sure. Right over there, there's a QR code, so you can just take a picture of that with your phone, and then you're able to go from there. All right, so mainly what I want to see you try to create is kind of play around with this idea of the iterative variable, see what kind of things you can create. It doesn't just have to be from this standpoint of using a circle. You might want to try looking at some of the other shapes that are available. There's lines that you can create. There's spheres that you can create. And there's also the builder. So we're going to talk a little bit about the builder. It's the last thing that you could potentially play around with here. With the index variable, I'm going to make one more duplication of this art2. I'm going to make art3 so you can kind of see how you could create some artwork using this idea. There we go. Oh, by the way, if you wanted to cycle through some colors, let's say you wanted to have a list of items and you wanted to cycle through those colors. There's a way you could do that as well using arrays. We haven't talked much about arrays and lists, but you can actually make a list of different colors, and you can cycle through the colors using this index as well. And that's something that you would want to play around with, probably with Python first, with doing any type of turtle coding. But you can do it here in Minecraft as well. All right, the last thing that we're going to play around with here is seeing how we can use the builder to create things with this index. So the builder is a really powerful tool if you wanted to make things really quickly. You can make it with the builder instead of using the agent to build things. So let's start off here with the builder and just see how we can play around with this. I'm going to make it to where the builder is going to teleport to my position. So I'm just going to put builder teleport to in my position. From that point, I'm going to do this index right here. So what do I want it to do? I'm going to go into the builder section, and we've got all kinds of fun stuff that we can play around with. We're going to have the builder, let's see. Let's have the builder raise a wall from the mark with a certain amount here. And then we'll have it turn each time. That sounds like something fun. So I'll have the builder raise a wall, and we'll make it not based off of 5, but we'll make it based off of that index variable. The whole thing that we're playing around with this particular project is using this idea of the index variable. Make sure that you play around with it a little bit. So I'm going to make it make a white wool wall here. And then each time it does this, I want it to turn to the right. So I'm going to have the builder turn to the right. All right, let's see what happens when we do that. I'm going to press play, and we'll try this out. Art3. We can see that the builder happens pretty much instantaneously. Ooh, looks like it just built a single wall really high up above me. That is because it needs to move from one spot to the other. So let's talk a little bit about how the builder works. The builder needs to have a place to go. So in this case, the way the builder works is you start it at one point, in this case where the builder is teleported to, in my position where my legs are. Then I can have it mark that spot. So I'm going to place a mark at this spot. And now if it moves somewhere, I can have it raise a wall from wherever that mark is. So if I have the agent or the builder move somewhere, it's going to build from that area. So let me have the agent in this case. I'll go builder, and I'm going to have the agent move forward by whatever that index variable is. So when it starts, it'll be 0, then it'll be 1, then it'll be 2, and so on. Let's play around with that. Let's go to variables and index. So when it starts, it's going to start from wherever you are. It's going to put a mark down. From that point, it's going to move forward by 0 at first. And it's going to build a wall that is 0 tall, turn right, and it's going to keep on doing this. Move forward by 1, then make a wall of 1 height, turn right, and move on. And it's going to keep on doing this. And keep in mind, it's going to build from wherever you were standing at the beginning. Let's try it out. So I'll say art3. Oh, whoa. Whoa, what do we got here? We can see, oh my goodness, it's starting to make a spiral. Look at that. It's going to build right here, move forward by 1, turn right, move forward by 2, move right, move forward by 3, turn right, move forward by 4, and so on. Interesting. Very interesting. Let me have it instead of building by a certain height here, a wall of a certain height, let me make it instead just build a line. That way we don't have to fly over it. Build a line from mark. We'll make it with white wool still. All right, let's try this one more time. So I'm going over here, type in art3. Oh my goodness, what did I get here? I got this weird pattern going on here. But let's see what it's doing. It's starting by turning right, moving forward by 1, then moving forward by 2, then moving forward by 3, and moving forward by 4. We've got some interesting artwork. If I change these numbers, let's make it instead of 8, let me make it 100. Let's go big on this to see what it comes up with. Now if I come over here, type in art3. We can see as it builds, it's getting wider and wider. It's just turning right each time and moving forward each time. Interesting. And it's making that wider and wider each time. Let's go back to our spiral idea here. We can have the builder build a line from the mark. And if you wanted to change where its mark was, you could, of course, put this builder place mark somewhere in here. So I'll have the builder turn right. At the bottom here, I'll have the builder place the mark. So every time it turns, it's going to get more and more complicated ideas. Yes, Neve? Sorry? Yeah. You just have to take a picture of the QR code up here. So this is just showing you some of the things that you can do with an iterative art idea. Here I just used one line of code and I was able to make a really large spiral. And it's just using that same idea. What we're doing is we're having the agent start in the middle, placing a mark. It'll move forward by 0, build a line, turn right, and then it's going to place a mark. It's a new spot that it's going to build from. Then it's going to move forward by 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and repeat all these steps. And what you get is something like this, a spiral. And if we look at how this is built, we can take a look. The first time it goes right here, it moves forward by 0, then it moves forward by 1, turns right, moves forward by 2, moves right, moves forward by 3, and so on. This is a way for us to iterate, but change our iterative variable each time. So have fun with this. Have a little bit of fun. See what you can create to make it more and more interesting. If I wanted to make this spiral even more complex, instead of building a line from the mark, I could build a wall using that index. Let's try that. Build line. No, we want to build a wall from the mark. Here we go. Let's try this out. This time, though, I'm going to make it a pink wall, and we'll make it the index. So the first time it goes, it should be 1. Or I'm sorry, 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. But it's going to increase the size of the wall each time that it does this loop. Let's see what this looks like. Now, a good idea of what to do with this is to think about what this code is probably going to do, and then to test it out and see if it happens the way you thought it would. Let's try it. Art 3. We can see that the first time it runs, it's down very low, and then it gets taller and taller with each iteration. Look at that spiral. What an interesting looking shape. We can see that it gets really tall towards the outside, and it gets very thin towards the inside. It starts off at 0, and it moves up. Now, if we wanted to play around with this idea like we did before and flip it upside down, we could take this index variable, and we can make it to where it raises the wall from, we can change a math section here, so we can make it start from 100. 100 minus the index. So it starts at the top, and then it moves down from there. Interesting. Let's try this. Let me get out of here. I guess I should just chop a wall. Let's float out of here and make another section here. So you can go from ideas of making a very small structure to something absolutely gigantic. That's kind of the cool thing about Minecraft, is that you're able to scale things and make them very, very large if you want to. You can have a little bit of fun with this idea. I'm going to go down here and try making one of these with Art 3. And we can see the very beginning one is extremely tall, and it gets smaller and smaller as it goes out. So let me move up here, fly outside of this area, and look out from here. We can see it starts off extremely tall, and each time it iterates, it subtracts by the index amount. So it gets smaller by 1 each time. This is how you can create things, iterative artwork. You can create things that have just one variable that changes over time to be able to create very interesting looking structures. And if you're doing this with artwork, you could be doing something like drawing circles from different areas. Like we could use this not only in building structures like this, but you could potentially just draw circles on the ground. Let me give you an example of that real quick. If I were to make a Art 4, and all I want to do is draw some circles on the ground. The whole thing that we're playing around with here is the iterative loop. So for index, 0 to, we'll say, 5. I just want to draw some circles. So I'll go to Shapes, Circle of something. And if I wanted to make a line of circles, I just have to change where the center is. So I'll say a circle along the y-axis of blue, or cactus. Circle of cactus. Here we go, emerald block. And I'll make it start below my position, -1 in the y-axis. But maybe I want to move it along the x or z axes. All you have to do is put in that index variable. So if I change the center here, it's just moving where it is. It starts at 0, then it moves to the right, or along the x-axis each time. Now, if I wanted this to be bigger than just 1 each time, you can go into where it says math, and you can either multiply it or you can add it. You can do additional things to it. So let me use the multiplier here and say I want to take the index and I want to multiply it by 5 each time. That means the first time it runs, it'll be 0 times 5. It'll just start from where I am. The next time it's going to move over by 1 times 5, which is 5. The next time it'll be 2 times 5, which is 10, and so on. It's going to make a line of circles. Let's check it out. Art 4. So we can see that it's making full circles here. So let's go back in here and make them hollow circles or outline of circles here. So you can see how this will play around. Go back over here and try it out. Art 4. Makes the first circle, then it moves over, does the next circle, and the next one, and so on. It's just multiplying that I variable, or the index variable, each time to move the circle over. Interesting. If I wanted to go over here and change this, maybe I want it to be longer, so I'll just change the number of times it happens to 10. Play around with this. Once again, the coding is all about getting some general principle, in this case, this increasing index, and then just changing a variable here or there so you can see the kind of things that you can make. Here we can see this is going to happen way more than just one time. Each time it creates a new circle, it moves over the center by 5. 5 times the index. So there we go. We can see that we can use iteration to create some interesting ideas. Feel free to play around with the index variable, see what you can do with it. These are just some ideas of what you could create. But the best way to learn this stuff is to go in and just play around and see what you can do with it. Enjoy the process. Enjoy playing around and seeing if you can predict what it's going to do. The main principle of what we're looking at here of what is happening is based off of this idea of the index variable starting at 0, and every time it loops, it increases by 1. So you get one part of your loop that changes a little bit every time. And in doing this, you can create some really complex and interesting types of shapes. I hope you have fun with this. If you have any questions, let me know. Message me in Schoology or email me. Tell me what it is you have questions about, and I can help you if there's something that you're trying to achieve with this type of effect. Enjoy the process and play around.